Squad, and tactical first-person shooters in general, offer a unique experience differing from traditional first-person shooters. It's a subgenre that focuses on strategic thinking, planning, cooperation, and coordination between other players. The focus isn't on the mechanical skill of the players that allows them to carry their team to victory, but rather focuses on good strategic planning and tactical efficiency. The game is supposed to make you feel like a cog in the machine, the cog being a soldier with a specific role, a rifleman to resupply the squad, a medic to heal and revive players, or an anti-tank soldier to ward off enemy armor. And the wider machine being your squad and team, all working together and accomplishing their roles to work toward victory. The simulation of being a soldier on a massive battlefield, working with a team to outsmart and out-cooperate your opponents, is the core idea of the tactical first-person shooter subgenre. But finding that experience, well, that's a different story. If you're looking for that experience Squad claims to offer, then Squad right now is similar to playing a slot machine. Most of the game you hit duds. Maybe you get a cherry here and there, a cool moment, a victorious fight on an objective. But most of the time, you will run into incompetent squad leaders, uncooperative teammates, and an enemy team that seems entirely compromised of members of SEAL Team 6. And yet, you just keep wasting your time pulling that slot machine. Why? Because when you hit that triple cherry, when you get that slam dunk jackpot, the euphoria that washes over you is an experience in gaming seldom seen anywhere else. That triple cherry jackpot is having a charismatic squad leader and a cooperative team all working together like a well-oiled machine to grind itself to victory. And you, an important cog in that machine, a rifleman, dropping ammo to keep your squad supplied in enemy territory, an anti-tank soldier, saving your squad from imminent death by destroying enemy vehicles, a victorious charge up the hill that wins the game. That is Squad. But Squad has a problem that eats at its very soul, a problem that threatens its future and its player base. The relentless backslide of its match quality. Incompetent squad leaders, lock squads, and mute teammates are everywhere. Even on the most hardcore servers they can be found in abundance. Countless squad leaders have succumbed to alcoholism. The tiers of ICO haters swarm like a tsunami over discords and subreddits. And yet, the game is more popular than ever. A fantastic update just came out, and it's clear that some sort of massive overhaul is on the horizon. Squad finds itself in one of the most controversial and tumultuous times in its history, and the unsolvable problem remains as one of the dominant issues of Squad almost a year after the ICO's release. Which is why I want to talk about Hell Let Loose. Hell Let Loose has an answer to the perpetual issue of match quality. Hell Let Loose is a World War II large-scale tactical first-person shooter. It was heavily inspired by Red Orchestra II, another popular World War II tactical FPS. However, its design is much more casualized than Squad. Casualized meaning its gameplay is much more in line with the mainstream FPS titles. The maps are a lot smaller and more restrictive, funneling players into choke points with little room for maneuvering. It can be described at times as a meat grinder, and has a much more easygoing outlook on logistics. You only need a supply truck driver, a support player, or your commander to drop supplies for a garrison. A team-wide spawn. You need no teammates around you to place the garrison. This allows squad leaders, support players, and the commander to be the only ones needed to create and sustain a strong spawn network, which is usually how games are won, by sustaining and expanding your spawn network and tearing down your enemies. This allows all other players to throw themselves into the fighting on the objectives. This is actually an ingenious system in its own right. Players who just want to have a traditional, Battlefield-esque experience can easily jump in and enjoy themselves. You won't have to persuade your squad to follow you around and build spawns. It's strategic and thought-provoking too. You need to simultaneously build and protect your garrisons. That means protecting your backline from enemy players, sneaking around and dismantling your garrisons, while simultaneously trying to get into your opponent's backline and dismantle their spawn network. Additionally, while there are many choke points on the map, there are flanks that can be contested and fought for that are usually less populated than the main fight at the objectives. An ability called Airheads, a team-wide temporary spawn dropped by a commander, or even rogue squad leaders who sneak into the enemy's backline, can place garrisons to completely change the front line if the enemy isn't careful. There is complexity here, but you don't have to interact with it if you don't want to. A more casual player just needs to listen to the squad leaders and commanders and spawn where they tell you to, which isn't nearly as much of an issue as it is in squad, because there's usually always fighting where you spawn, even if it can be sporadic at times. The genius of Hell Let Loose's design is that it is casual enough for fans of traditional first-person shooters like Battlefield to both enjoy the game and be useful to the players who engage more with the teamwork and logistics angle. The game has room for both kinds of players. Not to say that Hell Let Loose never suffers from match quality, it certainly does. You can consistently see in public matches a group of players fighting in a useless or irrelevant position, and will facepalm at friendly armor, burning your fuel resources by suiciding themselves into enemy strongpoints. But the system works better than squad when it comes to integrating more casual FPS players effectively. Post Scriptum, or now what is called Squad 44, is what happens when you fail to get those Battlefield refugees to come to your game. Post Scriptum has a lot to offer. It has 9 factions, that classic large-scale Battlefield experience, and one of the most comprehensive, intricate, and detailed armor combat systems I've ever seen, with tons of unique vehicles. So, why did it fail? There's a lot of theories. Rampant bugs, little communication from developers. I think these theories are wrong. There are tons of popular games with rampant bugs, just look at Fallout. And there are plenty of popular games with devs who don't talk to their player base for months. Hell Let Loose's Black Matter and Squad's OWI have done that themselves. The real issue is marketing, or lack thereof, and its competitors. Hell Let Loose simply had better marketing, had a better way to integrate those Battlefield players into their game, was more broadly appealable, and therefore crushed the competition, which was mostly just Post Scriptum at the time. If Post Scriptum had better marketing, maybe it could have still been moderately successful. It could have been that step up for Hell Let Loose players that wanted something a bit more hardcore. But whether it was a financial issue or a management issue, they didn't effectively advertise to a wider audience, and that's why there's less than 300 players active at a time now. Post Scriptum, or Squad 44 now I guess, is an example of what happens when you fail to integrate those Battlefield and Call of Duty fans into your game. Your game sputters and dies.
Let it groove!
Hell Let Loose has a fairly united team. The trailers are still dedicated largely to the massive scale of the game's battlefield and chaotic warfare, similar to a Battlefield trailer, but is impacted less by the casual players because of a more informal focus around teamwork and coordination. The marketing team and developers are generally on the same page. With Squad, it's different. Its more hardcore gameplay exacerbates the issues with the Battlefield refugee crisis. Put simply, Squad cannot as effectively integrate casual first-person shooter players because the spawn, logistics, and ticket system in Squad is more complex and runs contrary to the casual player's mindset of spawn, run, die, repeat, and requires non-leader players to do some work. A brief explanation of the system. In Squad, you have build and ammo. Your ammunition is persistent in Squad. You do not regenerate ammunition as you do in Hell Let Loose unless you spawn at the main base. Therefore, ammunition must be manually loaded onto logistics vehicles, be it a truck, helicopter, or boat, and dumped into FOBs or forward operating bases on the front line. A forward operating base is built by placing a radio, the heart of the FOB. From there, anywhere in a 150-meter radius, you can place various weapons, emplacements, and of course, the all-important spawn bunker, serving an identical role to garrisons from Hell Let Loose. Squad leaders can place emplacement blueprints, but only regular soldiers have the shovels to build them up. Meaning, if you want to build team-wide spawns, you need to bring regular soldiers with you to build. Most experienced players understand their troops want to get into the action, so they'll just get one guy to dig up the ammo crate, which is used for resupplying, and the spawn bunker for the team-wide spawn. Even so, this does create an additional logistical issue if the battlefield players are less cooperative. If you don't have a shovel, you don't have a spawn. So what happens when you are alone and can't get a teammate to come to you and build up your spawn? Or when you are alone in a lodgy and have to drive 300 meters to go corral some shovel boys? The problem becomes more exacerbated when considering ammunition, tickets, and the grand scale of the maps. For Hell Let Loose's casual players, spawning at the nearest garrison or outpost, then ramming your head against an enemy strongpoint over and over isn't the smartest thing to do, but not explicitly discouraged, and might even help your team in the end. That's because players are penalized by waiting a couple seconds before getting back into the action. In squad, that is not the case. Every time an infantryman dies in squad, they lose one ticket for their team. This seems minor at first, but many times most ticket losses are caused by infantry casualties in any given match. So using the Hell Let Loose tactic of spawn, run, die, repeat into a team's well-emplaced and defended position is a good way to burn your tickets to zero, which loses you the game. Unfortunately, players love to use this tactic in squad, and it can lose the game for your team as a result. So while in Hell Let Loose the casual players can be somewhat useful, in squad they are an active detriment to your team. Ammunition is another factor. The casual players are not just expending tickets with their human wave assaults, but are also expending ammo. And if squad leaders do not coordinate ammo to the front, then problems start to arise. The offensive equipment used in assaults such as mortars, grenades, and smoke grenades go offline. Automatic weapons spawn with little ammo and can no longer suppress. Anti-tank soldiers have nothing to stop enemy armor should it prey upon the infantry. This is not a glitch in the system is working as intended. If you don't resupply the troops can't fight effectively. It's just another factor squad leaders have to deal with, another massive issue that has to be addressed. This builds to my next point. Squad leading in squad is not fun to most people, but is seen as a necessary community service that no one wants to do. People don't mind as much being a squad leader in Hell Let Loose. All you have to do is get to the front, place some spawns, and you're considered a functional squad leader. There's a lot more that goes into it, but the bar of acceptability is a lot lower than squad, where you are required to move across large maps, set up spawns, coordinate resupplies and logistics, and try and lead your corral of sheep towards an active objective while keeping them together. Failing in any one of these tasks could lead to your squad mates ignoring you, and the other squad leaders yelling at you. No one likes to go through that, so you have a lot less people willing to fill in as the SL. In summary, Hell Let Loose dealt with the issue of mechanical skill superseding teamwork by making death much less important and simplifying the spawning system. Casual first-person shooter players are able to be useful and have fun turning their brains off and running an enemy strongpoint, whilst more serious players can act as squad leaders, coordinating the spawn network and leading the troops, without it feeling too overwhelming or intense. But I want to be clear, I'm not saying Hell Let Loose is better than Squad. Squad is a game that treats players like adults. It adds interesting mechanics into the game and lets you and your team figure it out. The problem is, no one wants to figure it out anymore. Most pre-game chats are pure silence, and when no one is behind the wheel, planning, coordinating, it just turns into a clusterfuck. So while Hell Let Loose dumbed down its gameplay to accept those casual players, and Post Scriptum didn't grow at all, but maintained its quality players, Squad finds itself a complicated, interesting, thought-provoking game with a player base that doesn't want to think or interact with its mechanics. I do think there are some things that can be done, however. One is to create several well-made long tutorials, emphasizing what Squad is about, and teaching new players how to interact with the mechanics and generally play the game. I think it's imperative that this be made a requirement before you can jump into online matches. I know that's a lot to ask, taking people hostage for an hour or two before they even start up the game, but people who genuinely want to play squad for the right reasons, I think will have little problem in doing so. It's the people who have no intention of playing as a part of a team and just want to go shoot stuff that might be turned off. In addition, I think it would be helpful to require a training before being able to play certain kits like the squad leader, so that every squad leader has a baseline knowledge of what their tasks and responsibilities are and how the mechanics around them work. Of course, some people have thousands of hours in the game and are still terrible squad leaders. That's why these two solutions are meant to curb the player quality problem, not to fix them entirely. Alright, so now it's time to wrap this all in a nice little bow. Hell Let Loose mitigated match quality issues by dumbing down the mechanics and channeling casuals into doing something useful like they were fucking waterbenders. Post Scriptum didn't integrate those casual FPS players and died. Squad doesn't have to take either of those paths to be successful. I don't want Squad to be dumbed down. I don't want it to die either. I want good tutorials that create a baseline of knowledge for all players. I want a steady, guiding hand from the developers, leading new players to the enlightenment of team-based gameplay. I want, above all, for Squad to succeed and grow, but not at the cost of its original vision. Not at the cost of losing what made Squad stand out in the first place. So, for all the new factions, vehicles, and overhauls I'm sure Offworld is excited to make, please consider overhauling the tutorials first. Try and show new players what this game is about, and teach them as best you can. Thanks for watching.